Last year, in the first Tri-State Megabucks Doubles Tournament of Champions, Joe Ashline and Steve Vadney won 3 matches against star-studded competition, holding on in the finals against a furious comeback by Gary Carrington and Jack Ray. Now, here are the 6 teams competing in the 1993 Tri-State Megabucks Doubles Tournament of Champions. Paul St. Pierre and Steve Renaud had to stage a come-from-behind win over Neil Gosselin and Francis Beaulieu. In January, Chuck Godzyk and Peter Flynn knocked off Mike Sargent and Steve Vadney with 5 marks in a row in the middle game. Last week, Bill Hart and Mark Arnold capped off an improbable 4-week run to get into the tournament. At Christmas time, Jack Stanek and Brian McKinley threw a big 156-second game on the way to their tournament spot. In January, Steve Vadney teamed with Brian Fuller for a solid 390 to become our second-seeded team. And our number 1 seeds qualified on Thanksgiving weekend as Gary Carrington and Joe Ashline put together a sparkling 407. Big names, big money, big excitement. This is the 2nd annual Tri-State Megabucks Doubles Tournament of Champions.
WNDS Sports and Tri-State Megabucks present Stars and Strikes Doubles. Stars and Strikes Doubles is sponsored in part by Somerville Lumber. Stars and Strikes Doubles is produced in conjunction with the New Hampshire Candlepin Bowling Association. And now your hosts, Doug Brown and Dan Murphy.
Hi, everybody, and welcome once again to Stars and Strikes Doubles, and again, welcome to our Tournament of Champions, our first week of our Stars and Strikes Doubles Tournament of Champions. Now, we hope you enjoyed week 1 of the singles event as well, and of course, starting today and continuing for the next 4 weeks, our season-ending event here on Candlepin Stars and Strikes, all brought to you by Tri-State Megabucks, and of course, in our doubles event, as with the singles event, Dan, some terrific names and should be some great competition.
The matchups are just fantastic. A lot of name bowlers that we're all recognized, or we've seen through the years and through the weeks. They've all worked very hard to get here, and it should be a classic Tournament of Champions.
All right, let's meet the 2 teams who will match up in this first of our 5-week Stars and Strikes Doubles Tournament of Champions. First, our number 6-seeded team from Manchester, New Hampshire, Paul St. Pierre, and his partner from Southbridge, Mass., Steve Renaud.
Okay, Paul comes in averaging 123, has a high single of 197, and Steve is at 120, a high single of 191.
And Paul and Steve qualified with a 3-string total of 349 to win their series championship, and so they are the number 6-seeded team, and they will face our number 5 seeds today from Manchester, New Hampshire, Chuck Godzyk, and his partner from Bradford, Massachusetts, Peter Flynn.
Okay, Chuck comes in averaging 121, has a high single of 199, and Peter comes in averaging 134 and 211 for a high single.
All right, and their qualifying score to get here, a 365, and so that was good enough for 5th place. The winners here, of course, will advance and try and move up the ladder. It's a long trip all the way to the top for one of these teams, Dan. We've discussed it before, but, you know, a couple of times this season, both here and on the singles program, we have seen either individuals or teams come all the way up from the bottom. In fact, just last week here on Stars and Strikes Doubles, the last team to qualify, Bill Hart and Mark Arnold, won 4 matches in a row, so it is possible.
Absolutely. They grabbed up momentum and a little bit of confidence, and who knows?
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. First of 3 strings, the first match of the Tri-State Megabucks Doubles Tournament of Champions right after these words. All right, to refresh your memory, here is the ladder for the 5-week Stars and Strikes Doubles Tournament of Champions. We already introduced to you the 2 teams for today's match. The winners will be back next week, but we can't tell you who they'll be bowling against yet because even as we speak, there is a 1-string roll-off going on between Jack Stanek, Brian McKinley, Bill Hart, and Mark Arnold. They are set to begin that roll-off in a few minutes, and a little later on in the show, we will be informing you the results of that roll-off, and then we'll be able to tell you which of those teams is 3rd and which is 4th. The 4th-place team obviously will be here next week. And then, of course, moving up the ladder, our 2nd-seeded team, Brian Fuller and Steve Vadney. Steve Vadney making his first appearance in a Tournament of Champions event. And Gary Carrington and Joe Ashline, our number 1-seeded team. Joe Ashline, half of the defending champion Stars and Strikes doubles Tournament of Champions winning team. In fact, it was Joe Ashline and Steve Vadney who won the event last year. But here's Paul St. Pierre, and we are ready to kick off this 5-week competition.
Drop of 7 for Paul, 1, 2, and 8. And we are underway.
And starts it off with a 10 box. Paul St. Pierre from Manchester, New Hampshire. Paul works for New Hampshire Stamping, the regular bowler at King Lanes in Manchester. And his wife Maureen have 3 children, Jessica, who's 17, 13-year-old Amanda, and 7-year-old Nicole. And for the spare, not quite on the 9-pin.
Like he had a nice piece of, a couple pieces of wood, nice angles. I thought the 9-pin would be his least of his problems. Pair of 10s. Starting off for this team, Peter Flynn. His partner, Chuck Godzyk.
Peter just catching the head pin light.
5, 6, 7, and 10.
And there it is for the spare. Now Peter moves over to lane 29 here at the Londonderry Bowling Center to fill that mark, and oh boy. Somehow the 5-pin is still up.
Still in, Peter, still in.
And there's the spare, back-to-back for Peter Flynn.
That's the key to a lot of these doubles matches, is to get out of the chute in a hurry, and that's what Peter's done. He put 2 spares up the first 2 frames. Now our first look at Steve Renaud. Or is it Reno? It's Reno.
Reno.
Reno. Just like
the city.
Like the city. Reno.
Just think of Steve Allen. That's how I remember it. Steve Areno.
3, 6, 10, and the 7. Not a good angle on the wood, though. It's going to throw that 3-pin. Well, it's not going to throw it anywhere. Way down there.
And an 8-box. 3 of these 4 guys are making their first appearances in Tournament of Champions competition. Peter Flynn has been in a tournament before. Back in 1991, he was winning the singles event as the number 3 seed. A match that Peter will always remember because he came in as the number 3 seed and rolled a 426 and lost to Tim Lipke, who threw a 467.
Oh, that's a 9-box. That's split off into the channel and came back out again, so that pin does not count. Not only does he not get the spare, but he loses another one in count. Just a 9-box. 37 through 4. Chuck Godzyk now will fill the spare left by Peter in the second. Oh, he's right in there.
Solid 9-drop leaves the 4-pin.
All over there, Charlie, all over there.
Looking for the 3rd mark in a row for the team. There it is.
And very quickly, the lead jumps to 19, plus the fill.
Chuck Godzyk and Peter Flynn qualified back in January with a 365. They beat Mike Sargent and Steve Vadney. A little off target for Chuck, but it worked out all right. An 8-drop.
Just leaves just the 1 and the 2. Trying to make it 4 in a row. And the early lead. Got to hurry.
Yes.
Makes it.
4 marks in a row for Godzyk and Flynn. The ball breaking back. take out the 1 and 2. So we've seen all 4 bowlers now. Here's Paul St. Pierre again. Half Worcester left.
2 and the 8 go out of there, and you just got to regroup and just kind of get your first mark up on the board. That's your first task, and after that, just build on it. Try to forget about the team you're bowling against, because this could really put pressure on you. Start pressing with the ball instead of letting it flow. It's a 6 box for Paul. It's 43 at the halfway point, string number 1.
Last year's Stars and Strikes Doubles Tournament of Champions, which was our first. As Paul gets a 9 drop.
Wants a clear shot at the 9 pin. He'll have it, but he's going to have to get by the front piece of wood.
Got it for the mark. First for the team, and talk about breaking the ice, Dan. That's a critical pickup right there on a single pin.
Next task is to drop a decent fill on it and get the second mark, and then loosen the team up a little bit. Meanwhile, Peter Flynn tries to keep his streak of marks going.
Again, Peter wobbles a pin for an 8 drop. This time it's the 2. He's got the 2 and the 10 left.
Piece of wood angled in front of the 2 toward the 10. Now, whether he can get the ball to fly over there, let's see. He throws so hard, the ball is probably going to take off on him now.
Let's see. Nope. No, and the ball came over also and almost got the 10 pin. So finally an open frame for the team of Godzyk and Flynn. 10 box and an 83 first half. What I started to say a moment ago was that in last year's tournament, the doubles tournament, which was held at Park Place Lanes in Wyndham, we had only 1 400 triple. That was thrown in the semifinals by our eventual champions, Joe Ashline and Steve Vadney, but we did have some other outstanding scores, and I dare say that we'll probably have some good scores in this series, too, with the caliber of bowler we have.
Peter right back in the pocket, this time the 4-8 left for a spare. A couple pieces of wood to the right. You won't want them to come into play. Shooting at the 4 pin.
Got it.
That's 5 marks out of 6 boxes.
And the lead is already 40 for the team of Godzyk and Flynn. The red team, Steve Renaud, Paul St. Pierre. Steve Renaud filling Paul's mark with 6. Steve from Southbridge, Mass. It's a long drive to get here. Steve and his wife Kathy have a son, 2-year-old Stephen. Steve works as a machine operator for United Lens Company. Does a lot of his bowling at the Bay Path lanes in Brookfield, Mass. And this time Steve will look at the 8-10 with an interesting wood configuration.
Obviously, he's going to try to play the 1 out in front, have the ball carry him off that for the 8. Second piece of wood behind could cost him the shot, though.
There it goes.
Enough to deflect the ball around the 8 pin.
And the 10. 76 through 8. So Chuck Godzyk steps up, and he again is working on a mark, as Chuck and Peter have been doing all this game, it appears. This time it's a 7 fill.
3, 6, 7 left. Going to try to split the 3 and the 6. Hopefully, 3 will carry the 7.
For the team, 100 through 6.
Show 1, Johnny. Show 1.
And a 9. First pin left standing by the team. Look at that, already a 43-pin lead. Of course, all the action of Stars and Strikes doubles and the Tournament of Champions Brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Tri-State Megabucks. They're with us all year, but this is the premier event of the season for 5 weeks every spring. Ooh. The Tournament of Champions. And we want to thank all of our loyal friends and supporters at Tri-State Megabucks. Just imagine being rich. Try it. Tri-State Megabucks. Well, a rarity. 2 open boxes in a row.
Well, I know Paul doesn't want 2 open frames at the last 2. On a couple marks, try to cut into that lead. Let's see. Oh, boy. 6-7. Well, on the inside or the left-hand tip of that, well, let's see. You might want to go right now. There's a piece of wood behind the 6-pin. And now another one, double piece of wood out front.
We've seen a lot of these 2-pin leaves already in this match.
Let's go where the 10-pin should be. Let's go right down the center.
The 10. And Steve knew that he had missed that. As soon as he let it go, he just turned away. Or rather, Paul. So Paul and Steve put a 96 up on the board for that first game. They are already going to have some catching up to do, but if Peter Flynn puts anything up here in the last 2 boxes, that lead could get up over 50 in a big hurry. Peter's got the triangle in the corner. 6, 9, and 10. Yes.
Just caught enough of the 6-pin to fly it against the wall for the 10. Watch, he just barely touches the 6.
And that's 6 marks for the team.
All spares. Still looking for our first strike of the match.
Wow. That was kind of a funny ball going in there. I think Peter thought it would be better. It's a 6 fill, and it's an interesting leave. The 4, 5, 7, and 10.
I'm sure Peter's got some other words for it other than interesting, but...
and he did not want to play it there. Undoubtedly, he was trying to catch the piece of wood still remaining. That's a 10 and an outstanding 145 for the team of Chuck Godzyk and Peter Flynn. 145, and their lead is 49 pins at the end of 1 game. We'll be back with Game 2, Week 1 of the Stars and Strikes Doubles Tournament of Champions. Don't go away. This is Chuck Godzyk to lead off Game 2 for the team of Godzyk and Flynn, and they have gotten off to a roaring start here in the Doubles Tournament of Champions.
Now the idea is to stay focused and get a couple more marks up quickly. And they'll be on their way.
The 1 plus the triangle, yes, for the spare.
One way to do it.
7 marks in 11 boxes for the team so far.
See the head pin and a piece of wood in the ball. Take the other 3 to 6, 9, 10. Crossing over, a little heavy on the head pin on the 1-2 side, gets just a half dozen. 3, 6, 10, and the 4 pin. No wood to help.
Almost. Chuck Godzyk from Manchester, New Hampshire. He and his wife Karen have 3 children. Mark, who's 11, Chris, who's 10, and 7-year-old Beth. Chuck works as an inventory control technician for Yankee Book. Does a lot of his bowling at King Lanes in Manchester, the 9-box, 25 through 2.
King Lanes is pretty well represented here today, then.
That's right. Dan La Rochelle.
Paul's
Old La Rochelle family.
Isn't Paul St. Pierre full out of King Lanes as well?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, Dan, that's enough plugs.
I guess.
That's right. I even got King Lane's business card here stamped on top of this computer, too. They're everywhere. 5 and 8 for Steve. And
that's an important start for the team. They had only one mark in the first game, and get something up there quickly in game 2 could be important here. Right in the pocket, and it'll be, what will it be? It'll be an 8 drop.
the spare was good, the fill was great, but this is important. Getting the second one up 2 in a row, and maybe they'll be on their way.
Yes, with help from the wood in the back. So 2 quick marks in a row for the team of Renaud and St. Pierre. Now Peter Flynn. Talked about Peter's appearance in the singles tournament of champions 2 years ago. Of course, Peter is also the number 3 seed coming up in this year's tournament. So regardless of what happens here, you'll be seeing him again in a couple of weeks on the noon show. And it's an 8-box.
See Peter do that too often. 2 pins together and miss both of them.
Peter overall making his 20th appearance on Stars and Strikes. He is 15 and 4 overall. No. Got a break on the first ball, but unable to convert the spare.
That time he was just flush right on the head pin, drove everything straight back. But they'll have another open frame.
It's a 10-box. And yes, indeed, an opening for Paul St. Pierre. Oh, he pulled that one. And that was on a spare, folks. A 1 fill.
Well, let's see if he can recover here. A lot of the momentum was just lost with that ball. Unfortunately, you think about those mistakes for 3 or 3 of the 4 of the next boxes, and well, good out. 10-39 through 3. But what could have been is not, and now they're opposite a 10 box.
Oh my!
1 and the 8. That's all. Just 2. Could even steal a 9 pin.
Paul had a feeling, I think, that something bad was going to happen on that ball. 2 more.
Spread eagle's bad enough, but usually you have 2 balls left when you're looking at it. This time, just his 3rd ball left, and he's going to see if he can grab 3 or 4, but he just 6 box.
We take a break. We'll be back. We're almost at the halfway point. Godzyk and Flynn with the lead here on Stars and Strikes doubles. Chuck Godzyk with his partner Peter Flynn in the lead. Chuck goes into that low crouch before he delivers. Trying to reduce the strike zone, I guess.
It's not a bad habit to get into because when you release the ball, you want to be as low as you can. A lot of people, as they release the ball, they start standing up because...
You suppose that might be why he does it? He's just kind of reminding himself to
stay down. Yeah. As you release the ball, you're using your thigh muscles, and it's not a comfortable position to be in. So the tendency is to want to stand up in the upright position, and a lot of people do that as they release the ball, which will raise havoc with your timing.
Chuck just missing the head pin, coming up a little bit short, and he'll look at the 4 horsemen. Oh, watch out. Caught it pin.
Another open frame. So they'll open with a spare in the first, and now they'll have 5 opens. And chance for Steve Renaud to put something up on a board.
Our participating sponsors for the Tournament of Champions here on Stars and Strikes Doubles, our friends at Somerville Lumber, where you can get it right the first time. Stop in and visit Somerville Lumber. And we're happy to welcome 2 new sponsors to Stars and Strikes for the Tournament of Champions. As Steve Renaud drops 9. Mattress Cloud of Manchester, Salem, and Nashua, your discount bedding store, Mattress Cloud. And also Gagnon's Furniture of Hudson, New Hampshire, for all your furniture and flooring needs. Gagnon's Furniture. Welcome to both of them joining our Stars and Strikes family. And the spare in the 5th for Steve Renaud. Not the pill he wanted, though.
No, it was just barely touched the head pin on the left-hand side. Left a cluster of 5 in the corner. It's a 3, 5, 9, 3, 5, 6, 9, 10.
Well, Paul and Steve have managed to shave a few pins off that lead, but not nearly as many as they might have hoped, given the score that Godzyk and Flynn have at this point. Just 62, but St. Pierre and Renaud just 5 pins better at this point.
Well, tripped out that 6 pin. Otherwise, at first he was looking at 2, 4, 6, 10. Now it's just the 2 and the 4 looking for their second mark of the second game.
Oh, right around it. The drought continues. 6 boxes in a row without a mark for Godzyk and Flynn.
And still no strikes at all in the match by either team.
Let's see what happened here.
A little light. Throwing the 2 pin around the 4.
Big hit that time.
There's the first strike.
And it comes at a good time, I think. The team of Godzyk and Flynn would agree, as they had gone 6 boxes without marking. Paul St. Pierre now. Trying to convert for the spare, and it will not happen.
Everything but the 9. $77 through 7. 6 pin advantage in this game, but still trailed by 43. They're facing a strike in the 8th. Once the 5 pin out of there, it's not going to happen. The 5, 6, 10, piece of wood in front of the 6, 10.
Not a lot has gone right for Paul St. Pierre and Steve Renaud in this match. It's probably not what they envisioned when they thought about coming here. Chuck's on the head pin, trips out the 5. Now he's got the 2, 4, and 8.
A piece of wood in between, which you really need because of the sleeper in the back.
Yes. Fair on strike. Nine marks for the team now. Chuck pulled that ball just a little bit, but boy,
when things go good, things go great. Drops 8, leaves the 1 and the 8 pins left, and for the spare, and make it 3 in a row if you can convert this. And a sizable lead. Got it. No, it doesn't.
It's a 10, a 119 for the team, and a 2-game total of 264. wood that looks like it may be rolling out of play.
Just got to pick on the 5 or the 6 pin, to the left of the 5 or to the right of the 6, and hopefully you can get things dancing one way or the other. It's difficult spare, obviously.
Did what he could. The runner-up team today will take home 6th place prize money. They'll share $150. The winners move on. And sometime before the end of the show, we hope to tell you exactly who they'll move on against.
Strike in the 10th.
First strike for the team of Renaud and St. Pierre. Off target with that ball, though. Steve takes an 8 on the fill, a 114, and a 2-game total of 210. So a sizable 54-pin lead for Godzyk and Flynn with 1 game to go here in week 1 of the Stars and Strikes Doubles Tournament of Champions. Game 3. Stars and Strikes Doubles Tournament of Champions. First of 5 weeks. During that last break, we were handed the score. The 1-game roll-off to determine 3rd place was won by Bill Hart and Mark Arnold.
They're still on a roll.
Boy, I'll say, picking up right where they left off last week. They rolled a 148 in the 1-game roll-off to beat Jack Sanick and Brian McKinley, who rolled a 102. And so it will be Jack Sanick and Brian McKinley here next week as the 4th-seeded team to face the winners of this match. Big first ball that time by Steve Renaud leaves the 9-pin. And the spare. Mark number 6 for the team. But they're going to need a lot more in a big hurry to make this match close. As the blue team of Peter Flynn and Chuck Godzyk have been running away with it so far. And Peter is right in the pocket again, and here's another one of those 2-pin leaves that we've been seeing.
That wood turned. I think it's enough to carry the 7.
He made this shot once before with a different wood placing.
In fact, now I think he may even catch a piece of that right-hand wood.
Nope, didn't even need it.
Now, see, now Peter stood up. He didn't think he had the angle. I was pretty sure that would carry the 7. Peter stood up. He didn't think he hit it far enough to the right to carry the 7, but just enough. Spare in the 1st.
10 marks.
Peter will start recognizing those things when he's around the game a little more. The 2 and the 5 left for Peter.
Peter and his wife Debbie live in Bradford, Mass. They have 2 sons, 10-year-old Sean and 7-year-old Craig. Peter marks again. Peter is sponsored by Grandpa's Printing, does a lot of his bowling at Pilgrim Lanes in Haverhill, and he puts 2 more marks up, making it very difficult for the team of St. Pierre and Renaud.
That close to another strike for the team. Leaves just the 8-pin. Piece of wood to the right. Shouldn't be. He doesn't want it to be in play. Watch out.
Nope. And the 10.
Fortunately, that was a fill on a spare also, and it would have been nice to put 2 in a row.
Don't forget, next Sunday, week 2 of the Tri-State Megabucks Tournaments of Champions will start at 12 noon with our 2nd singles match. And then next Sunday here at 1 o'clock, immediately following, we'll have the winners of this match against Jack Sanick and Brian McKinley. 10 for Paul. Chuck Godzyk and Peter Flynn, who have a shot at setting a little record here. The best three-string total in the Stars and Strikes Doubles Tournament of Champions, a 401 by Joe Ashline and Steve Vadney in the semifinals a year ago.
Miss, Charlie, just miss. Get the X behind it. Get the X.
In order to beat that, Chuck and Peter would have to put together a 138. But certainly that's possible the way they're going. They had a 145 opening game.
Well, they're at a 115 clip now. Need a few more marks.
I also want to correct something I said earlier. I mentioned that other than Peter Flynn, the other guys were making their first appearance in the Tournament of Champions. That's not the case because Paul St. Pierre was in the doubles tournament last year also. Paul's partner was Mike Morgan. Oddly enough, they came in as the number 6 seed also, as Paul did this year with Steve Renaud. Mike and Paul last year won their first 2 matches with 399 and then 398. And then they were knocked off in the third week by our eventual champions, Joe Ashline and Steve Vadney. So Paul St. Pierre making his second appearance in the Tournament of Champions. And right now it's a long climb for he and his partner, Chuck Godzyk and Peter Flynn, in control. We'll be back with more in a minute.
Well, it's now or never.
Indeed it is. Needing strikes, really, at this point.
I would say so. 61 pin deficit, 6 frames remaining.
Ooh, almost. Trying to convert the 2, 5, and 10. And trying to make it again. Got the 2 and the 10.
57 at the halfway point, string number 3, week number 1.
Well, you proved to be very prescient in your remark earlier about getting off to a good start. 4 marks in a row for Godzyk and Flynn to begin the match. They pile up a 40-pin lead in the first 5 boxes, and that was basically the story.
Never look back. It's tough enough when you're bowling singles, but when you're bowling doubles and you get that lead, you're not getting up there only every 6 frames. You have to wait 6 frames before you get up there again, and it's pretty tough to get the rhythm going. On the other hand, if you do get it going, it seems like it's catching with your partner. And both Chuck and Peter have been both bowling extremely well. There's the difference right there. When you got a lead, those extra pins seem to fall. It gives you the spare lead.
Like the 2 and the 4.
Well,
not this time.
He had that one other time, and he cut the 2-pin around the 4. This time he was flush on the 2-pin, drove it straight back. So Peter probably doesn't care if he sees a 2-4 the rest of the day.
4th straight 10 box for the team. 1 rotation to go. We'll see each of the 4 bowlers one last time. Paul St. Pierre. Oh, and there's a big strike. Easily the best ball Paul has thrown today.
He's all smiles. He says, sure. Starting to come now.
Just need a little time to warm up, that's all.
That time he leaves the ball out to the right. 1, 2, 4, 6, 10. No wood. Eight on the strike.
And an 8. Chuck Godzyk for his final 2.
Actually went a little far left on that one. I don't think Chuck wanted to play it there, but good things happen when you're bowling well and got a big lead. Spare in the 7th for Chuck, and this time off the head pin 5, Phil.
It's actually just Chuck's 3rd appearance overall here on Stars and Strikes. He, of course, won his match to qualify here with Peter Flynn earlier this season. Prior to that, oh, nice spare for Chuck to go out on. Prior to that, his only other appearance was back in November of 1987. So he went 5 years between appearances, and now here he is in the tournament. Steve Renaud for his final 2. That piece of wood is certainly in play, but it'll be checked anyway, just to be sure.
Sure, at this point, Steve really doesn't care if it's in or out. He just wants to get it over with. 101 through 9. That's the 10 box here. Ball comes off the wall for the 10 pin. Wood takes the 7.
Typical of what's been happening today for the team. Unable to capitalize on the spare leave. And it'll be a 9, a 110, and a 3-game total of 320 for the team of Paul St. Pierre and Steve Renaud. Peter Flynn filling the spare with 7.
He leaves himself to 7, 8, and 10. Double piece of wood in front of the 7 and the 8. Got a feeling he's going to make this.
No, almost. With the ball spinning over.
A little farther to the left. Just catch the end of that first piece of wood.
As we're running short on time, we will tell you that Peter Flynn and Chuck Godzyk have advanced to next week's 2nd match in the Tri-State Megabucks Doubles Tournament of Champions. We'll take a break and come back and talk to all the bowlers and chat more about next week's match in a minute. Don't go away.
All right, there's a look at the computer screen and the final score of this one after we ducked out for our commercial break. Peter Flynn with a spare 9 in the 10th for an even 400. And Peter Flynn and Chuck Godzyk with the big win over Paul St. Pierre and Steve Renaud. Let's call up our runners-up now, Paul St. Pierre and Steve Renaud. And we have checks for you guys. And I know this is not the way you had hoped that it would turn out, but you knew that you knew that you were guaranteed money to get here, and that was the important thing. And well, it was just one of those days. I mean, they gave you an opening beginning of the 2nd game, but you just weren't able to take advantage.
We had a chance there, but just nothing happened for us out there. Not today, anyway.
Just one of those days, huh?
Oh, yeah, it's kind of hard when you open your bag. Instead of bringing a ham, you have marshmallows, you know?
Is that what happened?
That's what happened.
Okay. Well, that explains it. See, we didn't know any of that. We appreciate you guys being here. Congratulations on reaching the tournament. We hope you had fun, and we'll see you again next fall, hopefully.
Sounds good.
All right, take care, guys. Thanks very much. Steve Renaud and Paul St. Pierre. And now let's call up our winners, Chuck and Peter, who will, of course, be back next week to try and make it 2 in a row. Nice win. Slide right in here so we can get you both on camera. And well, it was nice to get 4 marks in a row to start the match, huh?
Yeah, I come right out of the chute, and that
Good sign.
That really turned out to be the difference, really, because even though you guys gave them a little bit of an opening later on, they weren't able to come back on it.
Yeah, we got off to that quick start. That really helped you out. Loosened you up just a bit.
All right, now we know, actually, you guys probably don't know this because you've been bowling, but we just received word that Brian McKinley and Jack Sanick lost that one-string roll-off. And so that means Brian and Jack will be here next week as your next opponent. So this is probably all news to you now as you're hearing it.
Yeah.
But you knew either way it was going to be a tough match for us.
Do I start talking trash now?
We'll see you next week, all right? Guys?
Okay.
Thanks very much. Congratulations. The win for Peter Flynn and Chuck Godzyk. And now we'll take another look at that ladder because now we can tell you for sure that Jack Sanick and Brian McKinley are in that number 4 spot. Bill Hart and Mark Arnold continue on a roll. What a late season run they have been on here on Stars and Strikes doubles. They move into the number 3 spot. So next week it'll be Peter and Chuck against Jack Sanick and Brian McKinley. That shapes up to be another terrific match.
They're not going to get any easier for any of these teams going right down to the wire. It should be great.
Just one of those days, really, for Paul St. Pierre and Steve Renaud. You have to feel for them. You know, a lot of anticipation. They waited a long time for this match, knowing they were going to be here, and just nothing went right.
No, you and I know, and everybody at home, that the talent is there, but like you say, when you open the bag and you got marshmallows in there, something's got to give. That's a great one line.
That was a good line.
Well, really
Had you heard that one before?
No, but I'm going to keep it now. It'll be mine next week.
All right, we invite you to be with us next week for Dan's Marshmallow Line and for week 2 of the Stars and Strikes Doubles Tournament of Champions. Don't forget, it starts at noon with our singles tournament from Park Place Lanes in Wyndham. 2 full hours here on the Win starting next Sunday at 12 noon. Until then, for Dan Murphy and the whole TV 50 Sports crew, I'm Doug Brown. Have a good week, everybody.